Welcome to everyone on this very important call. We appreciate that you've taken the time this morning, and for some of you this afternoon, to gain some important information about Lewis and Clark's response to COVID-19 and ensuring the safety of your student. My name is Robin Holmes Sullivan, and I serve as the Vice President for Student Life here at Lewis and Clark. This morning, we have several campus experts who will answer the most common questions that we've been hearing from the parents. We hope this will help you and your student make critical decisions and ensure that you have the information that you need to continue your support of your student's academic progress here at Lewis and Clark. I'm going to ask each of my colleagues to introduce themselves to you, and we'll start with Bruce.
Hi, my name is Bruce Suttonmeyer. I'm the Dean of the college.
My name is Blythe Snott. I'm the Director of Overseas and Off-Campus Programs.
Hi, my name is John Hancock. I'm the Associate Dean of Students for Health and Wellness and also the Chief Psychologist.
Okay, well, let's get to your questions. But first, I'm going to ask each of the panelists to give just a few minutes of an opening statement about what they've been doing in their area to prepare. I'll start with the Dean of the College, Professor Bruce Suttonmeyer. He'll be providing information regarding your student's academic progress. Next, we'll hear from me regarding student life, including residence hall move out and what we anticipate life on campus will be like over the next several weeks. After me, you'll hear from Blythe Knott, Director of Overseas and Off-Campus Programs. We've been receiving a lot of questions about our students who have been studying abroad, and Blythe will give updates on our progress to assist students back to the country. And finally, we'll hear from Dr. John Hancock, Associate Dean for Wellness Services, about the health-related preventative strategies the college has and will be utilizing. After these brief remarks from all of us, we'll spend the bulk of the telemeeting responding to the questions that we've been receiving from all of you. If we don't get to a specific question that you have, feel free to submit your inquiry to covid19info@lclark.edu, covid19info@lclark.edu at any time. We'll answer it and then add it to our FAQ webpage. The webinar is being recorded and will be available on the Student Life webpage for later viewing. Just go to the LC homepage and click the tab Student Life to find the link for the webinar. Also, parents, feel free to share the link with other LC parents who you know were not able to make this call. So I'll now ask each of the panelists to give a brief overview of the efforts to respond to the COVID-19 from their particular part of the college. We'll start with Dean of the College, Bruce Suttonmeyer.
Thank you. Let me give a brief overview of academics, and I'll break it down into three areas: the transition to online classes, student academic support, and credits and academic progress. Last week, we announced that all classes would go fully online as of Wednesday, March 18th, that's tomorrow. Nearly all classes made the transition by the end of last week. And this week, faculty are testing plans with their students, making sure there are multiple ways to communicate, accommodating those students who have difficulty finding Wi-Fi or a computer. Now, it's been challenging for students and faculty alike to make such an abrupt transition. I'll get into specifics as we answer your submitted questions, but here, let me just say that we thought it important to maintain class sessions during this extremely busy week for reasons of continuity and community. We need to make sure all students, especially those who will struggle with online, will have access after spring break. And we need to provide students some community this week, and we want the stability of classes, gathering virtually with classmates, talking about their concerns with their professors to offer that. We absolutely recognize that many students are in transit, that many cannot attend class. Attendance policies and assignment deadlines are being relaxed and waived. We're communicating this as best we can to faculty and students, and we'll continue to do so. A main concern is making sure all our students will have access to essential academic services after spring break, which means availability of the technical means to connect, as well as the availability of our faculty and staff to your students. Faculty will continue to hold office hours virtually, advising staff tutoring services, library support, student support services, and IT help are all transitioning to helping students online. The campus will look very different in many ways, but all of us will still be available to your students to help them finish out this semester. Lastly, we are helping all students maintain academic progress toward graduation. For seniors, this means making sure they can complete coursework, theses, and projects, and I've been in touch with departments about the various ways they're ensuring that. For continuing students, we're making sure they can complete all their classes and get all the credits they need to maintain progress toward graduation. We're still working out many of the details, but all this work is to ensure maximum flexibility as we find the best ways to keep your students on track to complete the semester. So maybe, let me stop there and I'll get into some more specifics when we turn to questions.
Thank you, Dean Suttmeyer. This again is Robin Holmes Sullivan in Student Life. I want to give you a few updates from my area. I can tell you, and you already know this, that students are juggling multiple demands right now. We have urged them to leave the residence halls if they currently reside there so that we may better practice social distancing. We know there are some students who have no other option but to stay, but for the most part, the expectation is that students will return home. We would like to know students' plans no later than this Friday. They were given specific instructions how to inform us. You were given those as well. We are assisting them with on-campus storage at no charge of their belongings. We're providing shuttle rides to the airport and giving them overall guidance as to how to make this transition and still maintain their studies. We know it is hectic and chaotic right now. We're doing our best to help them remain calm and to get done what they need to get done. We will, of course, be flexible. We're also aware that some students are experiencing difficulties with flights, which might delay them leaving, and that is fine. We know that they're trying to do their best. This, we think, is the most chaotic time right now. We expect things will settle down significantly after spring break. For the most part, similar to what Dean Suttmeyer mentioned, services in the Division of Student Life, such as campus living, the Career Center, the Health Center, the Counseling Center, International Student Scholars, Athletics, Spiritual Life, and Student Support Services are all transitioning to an online delivery system and will remain open. Some essential staff will, of course, remain on campus. As soon as we finish assisting students moving out of the residence halls, the bulk of our staff will begin to transition to telecommuting in order to bring the overall physical number of people on the campus down significantly. Everything that we read and the guidance we've received says it's the best strategy to keep our community as safe as possible. I know that there are more specific questions you have for the student life area, and I will return in a few minutes to answer some of those questions. But for now, we'll turn to Blythe to have her opening statement.
Thanks, Robin. From the study abroad side, most of our programs have ended operations overseas, and most of our students have returned home or are in the process of returning home. We're making sure those students can receive credit and continue their academic progress towards graduation. A few of our programs still have students overseas, and we have program partners and faculty leaders on the ground working to get our students back home. This has been more complicated in some countries where borders were closed very suddenly. Some of our students in Morocco and Ecuador have been affected by this closure. President Van Bevel and everyone on campus who has connections with our elected representatives have been reaching out to apply pressure to get our students and professors back to the U.S. as soon as possible. Very shortly, we'll be able to turn our attention to what the rest of the semester will look like for our students. We're working on online and remote options for students on all of our programs. This will take some time as each of our programs is unique in terms of structure and content. We know that many students and families are also wondering about refunds for airline change fees, new plane tickets home, room and board, and tuition. Once our students have the chance to make their way home, we should have more time to dedicate to these questions, which we know are important to you. So we'll be in touch as we know more. And that's it for me for this moment, and I'll come back with answers shortly.
Thank you, Blythe. And John, would you like to have your opening remarks?
Yes, thank you, Robin. So my role at the college, as Robin said, is Associate Dean of Students for Health and Wellness and Chief Psychologist. So my training is in psychology as a licensed psychologist. However, I work with a a truly dedicated team of staff in our health service on campus, medical professionals there, with a public health professional in our health promotion office, and with mental health staff in our counseling service and our case management office, who have been working very hard to make sure that we provide the safest and healthiest environment for our students that we possibly can. In addition, we've been working very closely with following daily guidance from the CDC, from the Oregon Health Authority, from Multnomah County Public Health Department about how we can best support our students. I want to reassure everybody currently that we have no cases of COVID-19 on campus. I know that's been a frequent question. We are doing a lot of work to support students in many ways. So for example, we are doing work to educate students about what they can do to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Even though it's not on campus currently, we believe that from a public health perspective, that we all have a role, our institution has a role in being a partner in our state and in our nation in trying to limit the spread of the illness. So we're educating students about things like hand washing, using hand sanitizer, covering coughs, social distancing, and getting medical care at the first sign of illness. Also staying home when they're sick is part of that. We're providing clinical services in our health service on campus, and that really spans a range of services. We are offering testing for COVID-19 in the health service when it fits with clinical protocols that our practitioners are using. We are also doing symptom surveillance on campus. So what I want to acknowledge is here at Lewis and Clark, we always have at least one student on campus with either a fever or a cough. It's just the nature of having a community as large as ours. But not every fever or every cough is necessarily COVID-19. So we are watching any symptoms in our community of fever or of cough or of shortness of breath. We're monitoring those, and we are helping students who have any of those symptoms be in isolation. We are helping support them in isolation through things like delivering meals, giving them hand sanitizer, thermometers, masks, things like that they might need to support their isolation so that we can better care for our community. Finally, we are offering also access to 24-hour nurse lines on the medical side. On the counseling side, we're offering mental health support. And then finally, I also supervise the student health insurance program, and I'll talk a little bit later about some things that you might want to know about that.
Thank you, John. We're going to now shift to several specific questions that we've been hearing from you in regards to our academic, student life, overseas, and wellness areas. So Bruce, we'll start with you. Can you let us know some of the questions that you've been receiving?
Sure. We received several questions about whether classes moving online will count the same as always, and how we're adapting in all kinds of the variety of different kinds of courses, from lectures and labs to performance-based classes. So in terms of that question, courses moving online will operate in terms of academic progress toward graduation, in terms of number of credits. They will operate exactly as if we were continuing on campus. So the transition to online obviously requires adaptation by both students and by faculty, but we are committed to making sure all students get the credits that they're working so hard for. During this week, faculty have been communicating to me. I put out a call to ask them how they and their students are adapting and some of the experiences on the ground. And they are doing so in creative and inspiring ways. We're also in communication with many of our peer institutions across the country to gather ideas from them about what some of their courses are doing as well. We've also received several questions about academic support services and their availability going forward. We've covered that a bit, but let me emphasize again, faculty are available, holding office hours. All are sharing contact info with students. I myself am teaching a class and in contact with my students. I encourage students who have specific questions and parents with specific questions about student support services, library hours, textbooks, to go to the COVID-19 FAQ on the LC website for answers to specific questions. Clearly, things are changing with some of the regional and national guidance we've been given, and the most up-to-date information on hours and other specifics will be on that page. And lastly, a question about who best to contact if you have questions about the academic experience. For students with specific questions about classes, the faculty member is the best point of contact. They will have the most detailed answers and will be able to help your students navigate the, in some ways, inevitable challenges we're going to have, whether technical with Wi-Fi or with specific to the own students' needs. For more general concerns, you should absolutely feel free to email casdean@lclark.edu. That's casdean@lclark.edu for more general academic concerns.
Thanks, Bruce. This is Robin Holmes-Sullivan again, and I will speak a little bit about campus, student life, lots of questions regarding the residence halls, which makes sense since that's the focus right now. So here are a couple of questions that we've been hearing from you. We understand the residence halls will remain open for those students who must remain on campus. For those students who do remain, how will the campus ensure their safety? So the health and safety of our students, staff, and faculty are, of course, our highest priorities. Right now, we're following the national and state guidance to de-densify the campus and practice social distancing. We're anticipating a significantly smaller residence hall population, and many of the staff and faculty will transition to telecommuting as opposed to coming in person to work, which will further help maintain distance and slow any transmission. We could use your help in making sure that your student is going home as opposed to staying on campus, except for exceptional cases. We plan to continue meal service for our residential students, as well as campus safety patrols. Our residence hall staff will remain in the residence halls in order to assist residents. Another question, when will students be told to move? If they must, how much time will they have to move if they're still in class? We've communicated to students that they need to let us know by this Friday of their plans to leave campus. We're hopeful that all students who will be leaving will do so by this Sunday, if at all possible. We have staff on hand that can help them with boxes, with packing things up, and storing their belongings. Please remind your student, as we will as well, to not leave any valuable items behind. As I mentioned, we are providing on-site storage for our students' belongings. Another question, does the administration want us to contact them now to say that we'd like our students to stay so the college can start getting accounts? Thank you for that consideration, but no, that is not necessary. We'd like students to alert us of their plans by this Friday. That's the best way for us to keep track. Another question, if students leave now, will they have the option to return to campus living before the semester is over? Unfortunately, no. We cannot afford to aid in the transmission of the virus in any way. So for those reasons, students will not be allowed to return to campus once they leave. Another question that asks, students not returning to campus but staying home the remainder of the school year, will they receive a refund for their room and board and meal plan? Yes, if students let us know of their plans by this Friday, they'll be eligible for a 20% refund of room and board. We anticipate getting those refunds to the home address in about 3 weeks. I know several of you have asked about why we're not refunding the full amount. I will just say that it was after we had lots of discussion and thinking about the bottom line and realizing that we have a lot of fixed costs that have already happened that we have to be responsible for. And we feel that this was the most reasonable thing that we could offer for our students and families. For those students returning, may students roll over their flex points next semester since they are leaving early as opposed to a refund? Again, right now, our biggest focus is really on trying to help students leave the residence halls. So we would rather not have various systems of getting the refund back to you. So we ask that you understand that we will just do a full refund of the 20% to those students who let us know, as opposed to rolling points over or rolling room and board to the next year. What services will be available for those students who stay on campus during break due to it being safer to travel to a known hotspot and then return to campus? We are aware that there are some places in the United States that are having outbreaks. We're really focusing on trying to help our students to make the right decisions and transition out of the residence halls, make sure that they have what they need to begin taking classes online. When that concludes, we will turn our attention to campus life. We also need to know how many students remain as we think through our plans to make sure students have opportunities on campus. So we will look to this, but first we need to make sure that we get students out of the residence halls as much as possible, and we'll make those plans after that time. Given the swift departure, will students have their rooms reviewed for damages and cleanliness, et cetera, as is usually done at the end of the year? So we want you to know, and we've told students, that we're relaxing the reporting responsibilities that we normally expect of students, given the quickness of the move out for the semester. We're asking students to do just the best that they can in terms of cleaning their rooms. But if there is noticeable damage to the room, we will ask students to be responsible for that. Another question we've gotten is, are you going to require students to relocate into different residence halls rooms? Will students be in singles instead of doubles? And my answer is most likely. We have to make sure that we're practicing social distancing. We also have a need to clean as many rooms as possible. And now we're going to be having students store some of their valuables here with us. And so for that reason, if students end up staying, they will have to be flexible. And depending on the number of students that we end up with, we'll consider moving them from doubles to singles. Will the athletic facilities be open for use? Our answer to that is that as of right now, most of our athletic fields, our gym, and our weight room are open for LC students and staff only. We do anticipate, however, that this could change going forward if we get further guidance from the governor or from the federal government. And the last question that I will answer right now is, will the bus still work, albeit on a modified schedule to go into Portland? Yes, right now, we currently anticipate that the pilot shuttle or smaller campus shuttles will be available to transport students to the grocery store, downtown, and the like. However, it could become a time that shelter-in-place guidance comes from the governor or the president, and that could change things temporarily. We'll get to a few more student life questions in a moment, but let me give the floor to Blythe in overseas to answer a few of the questions that she's been receiving. Blythe?
Thanks. One question is, what contingency plans are being made for students who are signed up for off-campus study in the fall, so they're not left without options in the event their program is canceled? We're thinking about this now. We have plans to continue running programs in the fall at this time, but we do want students to have options in case the situation doesn't change in time for us to make fall programming work. So I'm working with my colleagues across campus to, as an exception, allow students to register for classes on campus while they're still signed up for an overseas program. So that's the idea right now, and we're working on having that discussion with housing as well. So there's an option to live on campus as well as take classes on campus if that need arises. But as of now, we're hoping that fall works out for overseas programs. Another question, are there plans to train students on the new online systems, especially for students that are returning from abroad? We definitely understand that this will require a major adjustment for students who have been abroad. We're working on there are classes that are taught by our program providers, and those are being that's being nailed down pretty quickly. There's also classes that are taught by host universities. That has other questions we have to answer in terms of what time will the class be taught. Can they be recorded so students can be on our time zone or their own time zone as they're taking the class? We're working on all of that, and it's really program by program as we get those details lined up. Certainly we'll train students on the online platform that is chosen as best we can. Our IT department here has been really helpful to us in helping everyone work through these new platforms. I expect we'll be able to give students plenty of instruction on that. The other question is, What's the best way to reach us right now? The best way to reach us is by email. We're checking email all the time. We are at overseas@elkhpark.edu. Alternatively, we can be reached at COVID-19info@elkhpark.edu. Any messages that relate to us are forwarded to us right away. So those are my questions for the moment.
Thank you, Blythe. John, how about from Wellness?
Yes, so I want to talk about the range of services and supports we have for students on campus. I would also echo Robin's comments earlier about we think that students somehow getting back to their home environments whenever that's possible is very important at this time. But for those students who are here, I'm going to talk about the supports that we have for them. One question was giving information about the number of cases of isolation and confirmed COVID-19 cases on the campus. As I mentioned earlier, we have no confirmed cases on campus. As for cases of isolation, anytime a student is identified as having a cough or a fever, we're asking them to self-isolate. And so we've had anywhere between 2 and 7 students across the campus self-isolating over the last week. A number of those students, once they're free of fever for 24 hours, without the use of fever-reducing medication, they can come out of isolation. And so some students have gone in and come out, and so it's been a rotating matter. But typically we've had between about 2 and 7 students. And again, we're supporting those students in their rooms with things like meals and masks for when they have to come out of their room for perhaps to use a common bath area, something like that. Another question that was on my list: what medical services will be available on campus if a student becomes ill? And so I want to frame that in terms of 2 different time frames. Currently, all of our medical services on campus are being provided in person in the health service. So our nurse practitioners are available to meet with students and think about what their needs are. Of course, if we have any student who is having any symptoms that might be related to COVID-19, and again, most of these symptoms, fever, cough, shortness of breath, they are associated with many other conditions. So mostly they're not COVID-19. But whenever we hear of a symptom like that, we want students to call into the health service during daytime working hours, and our staff will go through a triage process to make sure that that student gets the care they need. Anytime after hours, if a student has a symptom like those and they're needing a medical consultation, we have a nurse consultation line that's available. And that information is pushed out to students many times through the academic year, as well as on our health service webpage and through our social media platforms, so students are aware, and we've pushed it out even more so recently to students to make sure that they're aware that if they have symptoms after hours and they need a consultation after hours, that's the way they can get it. A related question was, will students have a way to get to a hospital, and what type of support would they receive from the college? So I want to acknowledge that the Oregon Health Authority last night pushed out some guidance to clinicians, and that guidance indicated that for individuals with suspected or confirmed COVID-19 illness who can recover at home, they recommend isolation until 7 days from the positive test or 72 hours after resolution of fever and symptoms, whichever is longer. What that says and means is that most students, most individuals who are diagnosed with COVID-19 will actually not wind up at the hospital. But absolutely, if there was ever a case of anything really on campus, whether it was COVID-19 or any other symptom that a student might experience that called for the student to be transported to the hospital, we would work at getting that student to the hospital, whether that is in an emergency situation through an ambulance or through other means. So we will support students with that. Another question on the mental health side: what mental health services will be available to students who remain on campus? And what about those services for students who travel back to their home states? For now, we continue to offer in-person counseling services in the counseling service. We're using social distancing practices so that we can keep our students coming in for services as well as our students and our staff safe. We will be transitioning to telehealth services after spring break. One of the issues that arises with telehealth services is that, and this is true for both medical and for psychological practice, is that state providers are licensed in the state that they practice. And so we're not always able to provide telehealth services in states other than the one in which a provider is licensed. So for our providers with Oregon licenses, we will be able to provide many telehealth services after spring break to students who are either on campus or living in Oregon. For students who are living outside of Oregon, we've engaged them this week. We will be continuing to engage them about making sure they have support to find referrals to providers who are licensed in the state that they're living in. So we'll continue to offer those services. We also offer a 24-hour crisis counseling line. So anytime, night or day, if a student is experiencing significant stress, wants to talk with a counselor, the 24-hour counseling staff can essentially provide counsel to a student in any state. So no matter where our students live, even around the world, they can call that crisis line and get support. And all of these resources are available on our wellness web pages. Next question, what is the expected isolation and quarantine policy of the campus, and how are you tracking these issues? So we have heavily marketed to students about reporting their symptoms to us. We do have an isolation and quarantine policy that is available for parents to view on our webpage. We ask for your partnership. Really, at any sign of the first symptom that a student has, they should be isolating and calling into our health service, or if it's after hours, calling into our nurse line. That's the first step. And after that, we will take care of them to make sure that they're in the appropriate amount of isolation, depending on their circumstance. There's a question about what happens to students living off campus, and will off-campus students have access to healthcare facilities on campus if and when they need them? The answer is yes. Students who live on campus and off campus have the same access to our health service, to our counseling service, and to our case management office as students who live on campus. So everyone has the same access that way. The last question that I want to address is around student health insurance. I know there have been a number of people with concerns about this. So I want to, and I know this only affects a relatively smaller portion of our students, somewhere around perhaps a third of our undergraduate students are enrolled in the student health insurance program. So that program is offered through Pacific Source. Pacific Source, as our insurance vendor, has connections to national provider networks, and these are robust provider networks where students, it's a very portable plan, so students can get the health care that they need back in the communities they come from. Now, I can't necessarily guarantee that in every small town in America there are always providers who are in network, but it's truly a robust provider network, and if a family cannot find a provider in their small town, let's say in Colorado or in Michigan or Florida, or wherever they live, they can contact Pacific Source and talk about this issue on an individual basis. I have posted some information at the very top of our student health insurance webpage, and I would encourage families to check that information out. It talks about the benefits for COVID-19 testing for individuals who have student health insurance. It also talks about really how easy it is to find a provider. There's a web link there where you can find providers to get the health care that your student needs. I think I'll stop it there and turn it back to Rob.
All right, thank you very much, John. So those are the questions that we received ahead of time, but since we've been on this call with you, we of course are receiving all of your other questions. So I'm going to try to address a few of them, and I may ask my colleagues for some help if there are things that are more relevant to their actual area. We're getting a lot of questions about textbooks and if students need to take their books with them for their online classes. The answer is most likely yes. So if they're using their books now, they will probably need them going forward. So the bookstore has a very good system where it allows the students to take their rented textbooks with them. And the bookstore always emails them a link to print a prepaid UPS label to return their books when it's time to do that. So that should not be a problem regarding the books that they are renting currently. If they have a book that they're done using for the term, we encourage them to bring it back and to give it to the library or to the bookstore before they leave if they know that they won't need those particular books. Students have been emailed detailed information about the rental books and the library, so they should have that information and know what they need to do. They can always contact any of those, either the bookstore or the library if they have further questions.
Right, students who checked out books out of the library, whether Lewis and Clark books or our Summit books where we borrow from local libraries, they will have until classes resume on campus to return them, even if that's in the fall. So students should not worry about their library books. We will be flexible with that, and when campus is open again, then we will have them return the library books.
Thank you, Bruce. So we're getting some questions about students who have cars and packing things up in the cars, or if their items are too large. We would suggest that they always check in with campus living staff if they have questions about what to do, but in general, we want them to know they should pack up all their belongings to the best of their ability and leave them in their space so we can move them to storage when it's safe at a later date. They can always utilize our mail service, which is going to remain open. They can use the mail service to mail items home. They can also use our third-party vendor, Dorm Room Movers, and they can have their items shipped directly by Dorm Room Movers to their home if they would like to do that. Another question is, we had our student pack her room and leave her belongings in the room before she flew home on Sunday. We already signed up with Dorm Room Movers and scheduled for the Thursday move. How are we going to coordinate with someone at the school to be our proxy? We want to let you know that we think we have this underhand. Dorm Room Movers is going to send the list to Campus Living of all of your students who have said that they wanted to use that service, and we'll coordinate moving of the boxes with us. Campus Living and other volunteers will unlock the doors of your students' rooms, and the items will be retrieved and stored with Dorm Room Movers. I have a question now for John in Wellness. A parent wants to know, how can we help a student who is extremely upset about coming home deal with the strong emotions related to ending the semester remotely, away from their friends in the LC community?
So this is absolutely something that we're very sensitive to on campus currently. And in truth, while we have lots of counselors available, students typically don't come into the counseling service to talk about something like this, right? But I think there is, again, this is one of those places where parents can partner with us. I think empathy and listening and understanding the losses for students, the losses of friends that they, depending on the student situation, if they're a graduating senior, there might be goodbyes that they've said that while certainly those friendships we hope last for them a lifetime, they'll be different because students are moving on to different pathways in their life. So students might have had things they were looking forward to this semester that were really important to them, research projects or capstone experiences or theater productions or music performances, and so that's a loss for them. So taking the time to empathize and listen and allow students the space, and also to give them sort of the space to be sad and maybe even a bit depressed about all this and anxious about it too. There's just all these feelings that are swirling for so many students. There comes a point where, if a student, there is so much adjustment going on, and we know that some of our students are quite, how should I say, perhaps more vulnerable to feeling anxious about things. And so for them, let's say for students who have pre-existing vulnerabilities around anxiety or depression or things like that, we're sensitive that the stress of all of these transitions can lead them to be in a place where their lives are even more difficult and they're more burdened by the emotions that they're experiencing. So So we're hoping that you, if your students are living out of state, certainly that you can help your students find support closer to your local communities. If you need help from my counseling staff to find those referrals, or from my case management staff, we will help you find those referrals as best we can. And if the students are living in Oregon, then there is that capacity for them to directly engage my staff after spring break, or as long as they're on campus, for that matter.
Thanks, John. Appreciate that. Bruce, we're getting a lot of questions about the college's plans for commencement, especially regarding the undergraduate college. Can you talk a little bit about what we've been planning and discussing up to this point?
Sure. Given the guidance we've been given by regional, state, and national folks on social distancing, we will not be hosting commencement in the Coliseum as we originally planned. We are planning to celebrate commencement, but we don't know at this time the exact form that will take. We'll be in touch with families and students as we have more information, but we are also talking a lot with partners, peer institutions around the country, and all of us are dealing with a similar situation. What are the best ways, using online, using streaming, using social groups online, to do that? And I see in small ways currently, as I've been talking to faculty and talking to students, the way that WhatsApp groups and other kinds of mechanisms have been used to build communities and build strong relations that have been fostered this year, over the years. Commencement will build on that experience as well. And we know how important it is for seniors and for families to celebrate. And we want to honor that and do what we can to make sure we have something for families. And we'll be in touch as we know more information and more details on that.
Thank you, Bruce. Blythe, we're getting some questions about potential refund policy for study abroad programs. Wondering if you could speak to that.
I guess the answer is that we don't have an answer for that quite yet. We're working, our first priority right now is getting students home. Our second priority after that is continuing academic arrangements. And as soon as we have those things lined up for our students, then we'll work on financial considerations for the students who have returned home early. We know that's important, and it's important to us too. It's just that we can't attend to it just yet. We have very pressing concerns right now. But we do know that you care about that, and we do too. And we'll get back to you as soon as we have answers on a program-by-program basis.
Thank you, Blythe. A few more student life-related questions. Someone asked, will the students who remain be able to associate in pairs or small groups? It could get very lonely and scary on a deserted campus without contact. I just want to acknowledge that there's a lot of unknown for us, and we're going to have to see how this all goes. As I mentioned in my earlier remarks, our first priority is helping students to safely transition from campus, and then several folks on my leadership team, along with students, will start to talk about what campus life needs to look like, what we can do, how we can work on this together. We definitely do not want the fact that we need to socially distance to equate to social isolation. We know that that's not the right response, and no one would respond positively to that. And so we definitely want to make those plans, and we think that students can be very helpful in figuring out just exactly what we can do and do that safely. We will, of course, continue to give them lots of feedback and information about social distancing and how they can do that. But really, because we just don't know what will be coming in the upcoming weeks from our governor or from the federal government, it's really difficult to say what those exact plans will be. But we will be aware, we will have people on campus, but it's true, it's going to feel and look a lot different than our regular academic semester by far. Another question is about supplies while students are on campus and those who are remaining or who might be using public transport and those things. Will we have hand sanitizers and will we be doing concerted cleaning? The answer is yes. As you probably know, when you visited your local stores or tried to order something online, everyone is ordering hand sanitizers. And so we did and do have a store of hand sanitizers, wipes, other types of protective gear and those things, but it is limited and we have orders in for additional supplies. We are trying to be smart about prioritizing where those supplies are needed, but clearly the residence halls are a high traffic area and we're going to continue to do all we can to keep those areas free of any type of infection. And as soon as we get more supplies in, which I was told today by our facilities folks that we did get another shipment in, we will make sure that we get those to the right area. Another big question that we know might be on your mind is, can Lewis and Clark, does Lewis and Clark have the financial resources to weather this storm if it extends into the next school year? Now, first of all, we will say, just like all the other schools and all the other businesses and the like, this is definitely going to have a financial impact on the college. We're doing everything we can to plan for that impact and to lessen it to the best of our ability. That's the reason why we've made some of the decisions we've made so far. We are also very soon going to be talking to the campus about taking cost-cutting measures to make sure that we're saving cash and we're not spending money that we could wait to spend later. And so everyone on campus is going to be working very, very hard to make the right decisions about if we really need to buy something or not. And most importantly, we do have a reserve. We have a reserve that we think will cover the impact that we're going to have for this year and if there's some impact next year. So we do not feel as though we can't weather the storm, but as many people are thinking about, we're hoping that we will have a decent incoming class so that we can maintain our workforce and offer your students the best academic experience we possibly can.
Do you want me to answer, or there's a number of folks who are asking about registration for next year, for class selection. So we are moving ahead with registration, which always happens online, so that is no different from previous years. I think what I want to emphasize here is that our College Advising Center advisors, faculty advisors are available to help students with this. They should reach out online, whether at the website for the College Advising Center, whether emailing their faculty advisor directly. Faculty have gotten emails about this, reminding them to be in touch with advisees remotely during this period. Right now, I have a meeting in, I think, an hour and a half with one of my advisees. The registrar's office as well will be available remotely to assist. So we will make every effort. We know that students are anxious about immediate concerns. We know that they will have concerns about deadlines and signatures and other things that often accompany registration. We will be lowering all the kind of barriers that are possible in order to make sure students get registered, to make sure that they have a plan for next semester. And we are going to be available for them, both reminding them, both being in touch with them, helping them throughout this. So they should feel that they have our support in doing that. And there will be resources online on the FAQ site and other places that they can reach out to for more information.
Okay, we had a question about students staying on campus or not and how to make that decision. The questioner writes, our motivation for listening to the webinar was to make a final decision on whether we should drive up to pick up our student from campus this week. The student would like to stay. Can you clarify the intent of keeping campus open for some students? Is it intended to be in case of necessity or only more a matter of choice? It definitely is the former, out of necessity. We have international students who cannot travel back to their home countries. We have students who have financial barriers that keep them from going home, or they may not have a home. There could be safety reasons why they cannot return that go far beyond the COVID-19 virus. And so we know we're going to have some students where their residence hall is truly their only home. Yet we still need to achieve some level of dedensification. So we're asking parents and students, please, if you have the option to go home, please do not think of it as a choice. Please do that so that we have enough room, enough food, enough care for those students who really don't have that particular choice. We know that you can understand, and we're in this together, and we're hoping that folks will make the right decision in regards to that. Relatedly, some people ask us, well, how many students do you think will be on campus? We won't be sure of that probably till it gets closer to Friday. We're hoping that our population will stay between 300 and 400 students on campus. That would be down from our, when we were full, we're at about 1,200 students. We feel we can manage that amount. If it's higher than that, then we will figure out what we're going to do next, but that's what we were hoping for. We think that by incentivizing students to go home, by you giving those messages, we're confident that more students will make that choice, so we appreciate that. Let's see.
I'll take one. It's a few folks have asked about lab credits and some of the other kinds of classes that very often rely on face-to-face teaching. I've been in touch with these departments. All of them have created plans with their students to continue with lab classes. They will get the credits they need for that as they continue working. It's taken a variety of forms, obviously. Biology with some of the classes is using data that students have collected already, using data that they got last year that students did. So it will take a variety of forms, but suffice it to say that all of the labs all of the classes are moving forward in an online format, and students should have been in contact with their faculty members. Faculty members have been communicating to all of their classes about what it will look like. And this week is the time for students to make sure that they are in contact with their faculty members. It is going to be easier once spring break is complete to get some of these classes better set for students. We understand that right now is a period of a lot of transition, and they should feel that they will be supported in all the different classes, that their academic progress, whether it be seniors or continuing students, won't be affected by this.
Thank you, Bruce. John, did you have any questions that you wanted to continue to put out there and answer for us before we wrap up here?
Sure. I'll do one more and also make a comment on follow-up on what you said earlier, Robin. You were talking about supplies of hand sanitizer, and indeed, those supplies, as we all know, are limited in the general population. The college has done a good job of sort of having some reserves of hand sanitizer that we're using in this situation. But I always remind students, don't forget soap. Soap, actually, we have lots of quantities of soap on campus, and we'll continue to have lots of quantities of soap on campus. And so soap actually, depending on which source you listen to, most sources would tend to say soap is a better choice than hand sanitizer when you can choose that. I know it's not always available, but so just to remind people that soap, I always push soap in terms of people using that for their hands. The other and last thing I'll say is just in terms of, there was a question that had come through. It had to do with how much maybe responsibility the college can take for a student who's self-isolating, maybe because they have a fever or they have a cough or something like that going on. And in truth, we can provide students with some supports here on campus. And at the same time, for a student who is symptomatic in their room, let's say with a fever, in the environment that we're living in right now, it can be a very scary time. And there's a lot of uncertainty in terms of what might happen next. Will the state issue additional instructions to us all about levels of self-isolation, even for non-symptomatic individuals? It's kind of a scary time. So having support, having family support, I think is just very important wherever that can happen. So yeah, we do a good job at Lewis and Clark, I think, of creating a place of belonging for students. Students do feel they like belong in Lewis and Clark, and I know many of them would like to continue belonging here during this very difficult time. But just to underscore again what Robin said earlier, I think to the extent that we can help them have support beyond this place and help them support from family or guardians or whoever else is in their life is a good thing, whether they are asymptomatic and just need social connection, outside of their rooms, or whether they become symptomatic and need a little bit more care than we might be able to provide on campus.
Thank you, John. And we want to do everything we can to continue answering the questions that you might have. And so if we did not get to your specific question, remember you can email us at covid19info@lclark.edu, and we will do our best to get back to you in a timely manner. We encourage you to continue to check our FAQs. Many of the questions that I see on the screen that folks are asking have been addressed on our FAQs. And we are communicating with your students. They do know much of this information. And so please be sure to continue to check in with them. As we mentioned, you'll be able to access this telemeeting online by visiting the Student Life website for the link. We expect to have it posted shortly. And in conclusion, we consider all of you as part of our team that helps make sure our students have the best academic experience possible. We appreciate all of your patience and help during this very difficult time. We all look forward to when we'll have the opportunity to return to normal operations. Please do everything that you can to keep you and your family healthy, and we will do the same. And so from all of us at Lewis and Clark, we want to thank you for listening to our webinar, and we look forward to seeing you in the near future.